Welcome to this week's Sadakayan program organized by Quantum Meditation Society London. You know that in this program, every week we share something that is either a timeless lesson taught by the spiritual masters or an insight from scientific inquiry, and often both, that help us enrich our lives today. Today, we are going to talk about something that is a very destructive issue in many people's lives, but that often stays a little bit under the surface. That's something that um, is not something that we feel super comfortable sharing in our lives, and that is rage. Rage is an intense form of anger. It is helpful that these days we now have learned to differentiate between what is considered to be healthy anger from unhealthy levels of anger and its expression. So, before we move on to rage, let's clarify what we mean by healthy anger. By healthy anger, we mean this emotional system that we human beings possess along with other mammals that make us feel a certain emotion. And obviously, when you feel a certain emotion, you feel motivated to act in a certain way. So that makes us feel a certain emotion when our boundaries are violated. So if you're walking on the pavement and somebody bumps into you, somebody steps on your foot, that is an example of your literal physical boundary being violated. So, what will happen if someone bumps into you, someone steps on your foot? You would probably feel within you a surge of annoyance, maybe. But normally, the intensity of that emotion should be such that you you can act it out in an appropriate way. So maybe someone you can see are there distress themselves, or it's a child who is not yet old enough to understand these things. Yes, you feel that annoyance, you look at it, and then you still have enough control over yourself to decide how to respond to this situation in a appropriate way. So you will feel this emotion called anger when your physical or other boundaries are violated, but you know how to act it out in an appropriate way. If that is the case, then you have very healthy anger. The reason we have anger in the first place is because it gives us a rush of energy. So the anger is characterized by a rush in energy. And think of a situation where someone is violating your boundaries in an intense way. Someone is beating you up and you're in the ground and being completely unfair and unjust and cruel towards you and is violating your boundaries in an intense way. Now, if you are lying there and you just feel helpless or you feel completely accepting of that, if you don't have any pushback in you against that happening to you and also towards other creations, other human beings, other creations, then what will happen? Then we accept all injustice, right? But what happens is that even if you are the weaker one who is suffering that, then you feel this burst of anger, which is accompanied by a surge of energy, which makes you feel powerful at that moment where you're like, no, I push back. I don't accept that. I stand up. So that's the function anger serves within us. When that situation, when that anger gives you the energy to push back and get up and re-establish your boundaries, or somebody helps you establish somebody else's boundaries, then anger is doing its job. Now, if you look at the times you have been angry, in the sense that you have acted out your anger in your life, if you start from today, go inward and start thinking about the the episodes when you've gotten angry, like this most recent one, then the one that's a little less recent, the one that's a little less recent, you will see that in most cases in today's world, the anger is maladaptive. The anger didn't achieve anything. It just made you do something that is destructive. If you are a relatively calmer person, good for you, but you probably know people around you who have done things in a split second of intense anger or rage that they are now regretting for the rest of their lives. And I personally know many people who are good people in the sense that they're just people, they're generous people, they're honest people, they are compassionate people, but they are prone to intense outbursts of anger, which eventually have a very destructive effect on their lives, on their relationships, even their work lives, even their other aspects of their mental and physical health. So, this anger is something that is often, like stress, these days are being used within us in a maladaptive way with disastrous consequences. Now, what is rage? Rage is when someone, anyone, has intense anger bubbling within them a lot, which often leads to them exploding in maladaptive ways, in ways that are disproportionate to the provocation. You may have heard of the term intermittent explosive disorder. There is actually a disorder called intermittent explosive disorder, again, which is going back to what we're saying in the beginning, which is something that is not that well known. A lot of people don't even know the term because it is underreported, it's hidden. People usually don't report or go to a therapist when they feel trouble, when they face trouble with controlling their anger in their lives. So, rage is something that stays with you beyond the moment when it arose, and it's now made a home with you, and you may not even know why you're angry. You may think it is because it's being triggered, it's because of something that's happening in your surroundings. But if it goes on and if you're a little self-aware, you probably understand, no, there's something in me that makes me overreact to certain things. You may even under kind of know when sort of your anger is arising again. Like you may have a pattern where even if nothing happens in your surroundings, every few weeks or so, you start feeling maybe at first like a headache or low energy or depressed or a tightening of your chest or twitches or aching or something, and then followed that's often followed by an explosion, and after the explosion you feel kind of a relief, but then later on you feel like when you're calm, you're in a normal state, you feel a lot of regret. Maybe if it's been continuing, this pattern has been continuing in your life for a while, maybe even shame or a sense of helplessness. So given that we realize how destructive this is, not only for the individual who is going through this, but for all the people who are around them. The children may be growing up around people like this, how it affects their mental health and their brain development and so on and so forth. It's important to understand how we can deal with this. And again, these are not things where traditional therapy or medicine has seen a lot of success. Having said that, there are a lot of tools that's been around for a long time, tools and insights that can help you break out of your pattern, this pattern, uh, in for some people in relatively less amount of time, maybe for some people in slightly longer amounts of time. So the first thing to realize if you have rage is that you can control your anger. If you're a human being who, for maybe even as long as you know, from your childhood, you've had like meltdowns or tantrums intermittently all your life, you are probably very used to thinking and saying, I can't control it. It can't be controlled. It's beyond my control. When it comes, I just control. I just can't control it, you know. And while, yes, given the intensity of what you are carrying within you, it might be easier or harder for you to control the emotion. It can be controlled. Most people, and this is, I'm not just saying it based on what I feel like saying, it's what psychologists say. Most people who are suffering from intermittent explosive disorders actually are able to control or will be able to control if they become very serious about it, and it starts with believing that you can. Think of the situations when you explode. You probably, if you're in front of your boss or in front of someone who has a lot of power over you, you probably try a lot harder to control yourself. You probably become like you probably become much better at controlling yourself in situations like this. But you probably, like when you're at home or like you're around people who who doesn't really have the power to put you in trouble, you probably tend to explode a lot more in those circumstances. So what that shows is that no, you do have some level of control over it. Otherwise, how could you do it? So the first step is to claim this power that you have, that no, I can control it. I can control it. And stop saying whenever this thought comes, even if tomorrow you have an explosion and you can't control it, after that, don't reinforce that belief that no, I just can't, because what happens every time you reinforce the belief, that neural network is becoming strengthened, and you are becoming more and more likely to act in a way that is consistent with that belief. So this belief that you have built up over the years, you need to start reversing it today. You start by saying no, I can control it. And maybe today you can just feel an inkling of belief in yourself, like, no, maybe I really can control it. If I practice, I can control it. So you start from there, from the belief that no, you can control it, because it is a belief that usually people who have who tend to lose their control when they're angry, it's a belief that they've let go a long time ago normally, and you need to bring it back. Okay, so something else that we do wrong when or we're a little confused about, people who tend to, if we have like an anger issue, we get confusing advice about is expressing your anger. A lot of time you will hear advice saying that no, you need to take it out somehow. You need to go and punch a pillow. That's like sort of the standard advice, right? A lot of people give you like, oh, okay, you just need to get it out somehow. So like you if you go and punch the pillow, your anger will go away. Well, maybe for some type of anger, and of course, if it's a choice between punching a human being or a sentient being, or and punching a pillow, of course you choose that pillow. But this is very, very important, and I say this supported by my own experience, the experience of my colleagues in quantum who did do a lot of counseling about various types of issues, that oftentimes with a lot of people, the, this acting out of the anger makes it worse. It's like it turns the fire into an inferno, and if we understand how the brain works, we know that every time we are acting in a certain way, we are strengthening the parts of the brain and the neural circuits associated with it, right? Every time I am calming myself down from an agitated state, I am the strengthening the parts of my brain that are associated with the calming down process. Every time I am acting out, I am strengthening the parts that are associated with losing control, with my prefrontal cortex being out of circuit, with my amygdala overflowing. I am making it more and more normal, and thus easier for my brain to go in that state and be in that state. So um, uh, if if you have sort of been following this advice, be self-aware and just see how that works for you? Does it make you feel like if you go and punch the pillow, are you suddenly all calm? Like you're kind of, or like, is it, it's like an expression of that state, and it's just makes you almost like it adds more fuel to the fire. Because I've seen a lot of people who, as they're expressing, and I have sometimes, experienced a little bit myself too, and I'm like, no, I don't want to go down this path where you say what you like, do what you like, and then you think that your anger will wash off, because it won't necessarily do that if the root of your anger is not addressed, if you're a person prone to outbursts and prone to rage. So I would say that most people who are prone to rage, all that it does is like it brings some more neural networks to your anger service. And so you become very, very careful about, to to the extent you can, about how you express it. And we started with the belief that we can. And so if you're then your reaction is, oh, I just can't. Like, no, I am not going to say that. Tell yourself that, no, I can. So number 3 is, a lot of people prone to explosions may genuinely believe that this is happening because of the surroundings they're living in. And again, if it's oftentimes a head of the family or something in a patriarchal society where there is really no one to really tell them that, what you're doing um, is really unjust and unfair and disproportionate. They might just go and say, like, you did this, that's why you did this, and I'm just disciplining my child, and I'm doing this, doing that. Um, though to be and if you are still in that trap, just sit down one day and sit with yourself and think about it. That are your reactions, and everybody, because if we are blaming our surroundings, then all of us, it could be any of us, right? So all of us. And if you're somebody who is interested in meditation and interested in spirituality, then you there is no alternative to self-awareness. Meditation is self-awareness. Meditation is sitting with yourself. That's one innate characteristic of meditating. So, um, so sit with yourself and ask yourself, are my reactions proportionate? Is what I do, is it really, the triggers, do they really justify it, or is it something, there's something in me that makes me overreact to things that may, in a way that people around me may not overreact to. Be honest with yourself. And my next point will help you with this honesty. The reason a lot of people have a hard time accepting their anger, or reporting or their anger, or going to a therapist about their anger, is because anger is most of the time a secondary emotion, meaning it is usually a cover up for another emotion that has arose within you, that you are more uncomfortable facing. So, what are the emotions that human beings are the most uncomfortable facing? I think number 1 is shame. We don't like facing shame in ourselves. Another one that is related to anger is powerlessness. So remember when we were explaining what anger is, we talked about how it momentarily makes you feel powerful. Now, if you're carrying within you a sense of powerlessness that you feel very uncomfortable facing, you know, and emotions are always harder to seem harder to face when you're not facing them, then we then they're act you know then when you actually face them, they actually arise and they subside. That's what they're meant to do. But uh, but um, but for whatever reason, if you have gotten in the habit of not facing it, it will feel very, very difficult for your mind to want to face it. All this is probably happening at a subconscious level, where a sense of shame is arising, a sense of powerlessness is arising, and um, you just want to avoid it, and you want to feel powerful, so your system is generating anger within you. So that is another reason, that because anger is often underlined by emotions that we feel more difficult to face, uh, because of that reason, we have a hard time looking deeply at our anger, because our subconscious knows that if we start looking deeply, we'll have to look at some of these things that we feel like we're not ready to look at. Now, this is a good time to talk a little bit more about why where the rage came in the first place. Why do some of us carry this anger that goes beyond what is needed at the moment? And the most common answer to that, and this is the most common answer to a lot of issues, is is that you faced something in your past, most probably in your childhood, that at that point you felt forced to suppress. You, as a child, you're helpless to the adults around you, and part of you, even if you're not consciously aware of that, your subconscious knows very well that you are literally dependent on these adults for your survival. At that point, or at any point in your life, to your subconscious mind, survival always takes priority. So, what happens if, as a child, your boundaries are severely violated, right? What if you are abused, whether it's sexually, whether it's physically, whether it's emotionally, whether it's neglect? You as a child have had your boundaries severely violated. You will have the natural reaction that human beings have to that phenomenon. You will experience anger. Along with that anger, underneath that anger, of course, you will feel, if you're sexual abused, you will feel shame, though there's nothing to feel ashamed about, but often people do. Along with that, you will feel powerless, right? Because you can't do anything to to save yourself from this injustice. But because your survival is taking precedence, you your subconscious at that point will decide to suppress that anger. And you may not even think consciously about it. It will just happen on its own, and for that time is the right decision. However, that anger is still living within you. That little boy, little girl who was violated in some way is living within you. Your inner child, all of us, today, who you are today is is a combination of everyone you have been up to this moment in your life. Like you're like those Russian matryoshka dolls, like you're 3-year-old you, you're 5-year-old you, you're 7-year-old you, you're 9.5-year-old you, you're 12-year-old you, you're 17-year-old you, you're 26-year-old you. All of those yous are within you. And in order to act in a certain way now, you need to have all of those within you on board. If 5-year-old you was super scared, that she will still come up, when you're maybe like in a situation that reminds her of that fear. She will come up, or she might even become so strong that she will take over. If if 3-year-old you felt very angry, at certain points that 3-year-old you will, it's always there, but at certain points it may even be dominant, it may take over. And the way to actually get out of this pattern, if you have this pattern of destructive anger, explosions, rage, is to connect with that part of you, because that part of you is completely justified in feeling the way he or she does. And that part of you have never been acknowledged for his or her validity, never been told that yes, you are justified, never been told yes, I understand you, never been told this should never have happened to you, never been never been hugged, maybe never been acknowledged, right? So never been given love to. And if that part of you is becoming, giving rise to anger, you probably have now want to have nothing to do with that part of you, right? Like you want to disavow that part of you. But that's not how people break through these patterns. The way to do it is become self-aware, in the meditative level, acknowledge it, that what's happening, and then you engage and give love and and tell it that I I understand. I am sorry you had to go through this. Um, I am here now. You are no longer unsafe, and I think you can let go of that emotion now. You don't need to carry that within you anymore because now you're safe. So people normally do that through inner child meditations, and in the future we'll give you inner child meditations. They can be extremely powerful done the right way. But even in your regular meditation, in when you're in, or just talking to yourself, or when you're in your quantum home, or you're in your healing center, you can just talk to yourself. Imagine that there's a part of you, that's still a little girl or a little boy, and you can still give them acknowledgement, validity, love, assurance of safety, and then respectfully, lovingly ask them to let go. You can do that through your inner child. You can also do that the other ways I have discussed in the past, where you talk directly to a part of your body and then ask them, maybe your heart, maybe your stomach, and thank them for everything they've been carrying. But then you can just tell them, like, it's now safe to let it go. And it can, at first, it may seem a little confusing, and I will give you more step-by-step instructions in the future, step-by-step meditations, but I can guarantee, like, it's amazing, amazing how your body and you can alchemize yourself. Like nothing has as much power as your own mind, as your own consciousness. There I say that, if you can actually have the persistence to uh, learn how to use it, learn how to use it. So I think I will leave it at that for today. So just let me just recap. Is start believing that you can control your anger. Be very self-aware about how acting out your anger affects you, like things like punching a pillow or something. If it's making it worse, don't do it. I think if you're somebody suffering from rage, it's very likely to make it worse. Most probably better not to do things like that. If you're still trapped in a situation where you blame others, uh, uh, be honest with yourself. In anything where you seem to resort to blaming others a lot, why is my surrounding this way? Come back to taking accountability for your life, and focus on what you can control yourself. And that would either be you controlling or having control over yourself, or somehow changing your surroundings. Otherwise it's useless, like you'll just be trapped in that external circumstance all your life. So you'll just be in that circle all your life. Number four, understand that anger is a secondary emotion. It usually have other emotions like powerlessness or shame that's underneath it. And the powerlessness you feel may be just a carryover from a time when you were actually powerless. So get in the habit of facing your emotions. It's actually much easier to face them than it seems from the outside, because when you face them, it may engulf you for a little while, but it subsides. That's what emotions are meant to do. Like, that's energy in motion. The energy comes and then they go away. You will move on much faster if you learn how to do that instead of suppressing. And then the fifth point is really just to learn how to engage and heal your inner child. Is entirely possible if you have the patience, and it's completely worth it, especially for anyone with any serious emotional regulation issue. Is oftentimes linked to our past, and can't really be dealt with just talking. You have to get into that part of yourself and release that energy, and in real life act in ways that starts building alternate neural networks, and start strengthening them, not give up on them, because it will take a little bit of time for the past networks to become a little weaker and the new networks to become strong enough to override the past networks. But to the extent you can, try, don't give up. And of course, underlying all of this, inner child everything, is meditation. People who have anger issues usually have low serotonin. There are many studies that show that regular meditation increases serotonin flow in your brain, and serotonin, it gives you a sense of well-being, which is what we feel when we meditate. So I think I'll leave it at that. Again, I'm sorry, I'm taking a lot of time, so I am taking steps towards making them shorter, but it hasn't shown effect yet. But I honestly am taking steps. So I am now going to start meditation. We're just going to do Shiti Lion today. The Shiti Lion, relaxation, easy relaxation is what takes you from the stressed mode to the relaxed mode. And every time you practice it, remember, you are not just generating a relaxation response within you at that point, you are also training your brain to go from the stress mode to the relaxed mode. So it's the foundation for all the other meditations, and it's always helpful. So let's do easy relaxation. So as always, like, let me know in the comments in the chat if you have any problem listening to the meditation.